Bloodshed on the thin blue line, testing the relationship between the police and the public, and protecting a metropolis. We'll hear from London's new mayor, Sadiq Khan. I'm Martin Stanford. This is Inside. Welcome to Inside. A series of shootings in the United States have pushed relations between police and the public in some cities to breaking point. There are accusations of racism and claims that officers are trigger happy. Unlike American law enforcement, police here in the UK do not routinely carry guns. In the past year, there were only 3 fatal shootings in the whole country. But a former firearms specialist here in the UK has told us that he wants more police to carry weapons as a result of the new terror threat. Dana Lewis has our main report.
British police are not known for this, carrying guns, training to take out criminals or terrorists. But this video featuring former firearms officer Tony Long is a rare window on what police here have often referred to as the dark arts. What Tony's book title so aptly calls lethal force.
You're not always going to get that perfect picture. You're not always going to get the opportunity to see a gun.
Split-second, highly trained shooting skills used by less than 1 in 10 British police because most of Britain's 134,000 officers are unarmed.
They came up with a figure of 0.06 seconds. The reality was my vehicle pulled alongside the subject vehicle and came to rest, and I opened fire 0.6 seconds.
Those fractions of a second describe his reaction time to carry out one of 5 shootings during his career as a firearms officer in Britain. 3 of them were fatal, and in one case Long was charged and later acquitted of murder. British police are largely gun-shy, while their American counterparts are accused of operating on hair triggers. Recent officer shootings involving armed and unarmed suspects have gone viral, driven by social media, including this shooting by an officer of a man in Minnesota whose wife said was licensed to carry a firearm.
He's licensed to carry. He was trying to get out his ID and his wallet.
Is that a cop dead?
That's a cop down.
Dude, that's a cop down.
Police in turn have been targeted and gunned down in Dallas and in Baton Rouge. Both revenge ambushes.
All right, the reason I'm stopping you is because you pulled right out in front of us.
In the United States, every single vehicle you stop, there's the potential there's a firearm in there. And so American police officers know that.
In this American police shooting, it's the officers who come under fire. 2 were shot by a motorist. Long says if police wait fully to identify a gun, they may not live to the end of their shift.
It's just the speed with which that happened, you know, and there's a police officer who, you know, was conscious of the fact that, you know, that he can see the guy's hands. He tells the guy, don't be, you know, look how quick that happens.
It is like having an open can of gasoline near an open flame. If you get them close enough, something bad is going to happen.
Former American police chief Jim Bierman runs a police foundation calling for deeper study of police shootings. And he says, look at police recruitment sites. You get a very quick understanding of U.S. forces which glorify armed confrontation and the ones which focus on community policing and pulling the trigger as a last resort.
6 months worth of training in an academy, and then they go out to the street for 6 months of training, and then they're released. In some states, it's less than that. And I personally believe that's not anywhere near enough. We're talking about changing a system for 17,000 independent police departments across America.
But most British police will never encounter an armed suspect in their entire careers. Guns are so rare here, it's about the last thing on their minds. Unlike American police, who have to assume in almost any encounter with the public they may face a firearm, legally carried or otherwise. But Long now argues for arming police in Britain. We played back the recent terror attack in Nice, France. 84 people mowed down with a truck until French police killed the driver. If that were to happen here in London,
God forbid, like that, then he's going to go unchecked for a lot longer.
which takes the death toll much higher.
Absolutely. We've done as much as we can. We've gone as long as we can do without arming the police. We seriously need to actually think about doing that now. And I think they should be allowed to carry a gun on duty. I think that's a compromise, because the world is changing. It's a different place.
But convincing the British, who had no police shootings last year, that arming police to fight terrorists is critical will be a hard sell. Dana Lewis, reporting for Insight.
Well, to discuss that further, I'm joined now by Dr. Heather Panter, who worked as a police officer in the United States and is now a senior lecturer in policing studies at Liverpool here in the UK. Heather Panter, are American police officers more gun-happy?
I don't know if necessarily gun-happy, but America is a culture out of all the developed nations that you are 10 times more likely to die by firearm violence than any other country in the world.
But why would you say that that has evolved? Why has America evolved to be such a violent place?
I would dare to say that it's actually a social issue. Currently what we have going on in America with racial tension between the black community and the policing community, there's a lot of misunderstanding. There's been ignoring the fact that if you're black, you're going to receive a 20% more of a prison sentence than if you are white, convicted for the same crime. You're much more likely to be targeted by the police. Per capita, you are 3 times more likely to be killed by the police if you're black. There is obviously a social issue going on when we talk about race in America and the relationship between the police.
And is there no motivation to try and change that?
There is motivation, but right now what the policing community is neglecting to do, and they need to do a better job with, is they need to be accountable. If you're a police officer in America and you see something that's unjust or something that is biased in nature, individuals need to be condoned. They need to be told that their actions are wrong, and this does not represent the police community as a whole.
Are they badly managed then? Are they badly led? I know we're talking about the whole of the United States of America in one sentence, but is that a problem, the management, the leadership?
Potentially. We have now moved away from a community-style type of policing to a more zero-tolerance type of style of policing. We need to reestablish the relationships we have with communities that we serve. As a police officer, you're a representative factor of the community that you're trying to protect.
The United Kingdom compares dramatically with the United States, doesn't it? With certainly the number of gun deaths and certainly the number of gun deaths at the hands of police officers. What is it that the UK does so differently?
Well, the style of policing is tremendously different. There are some factors that come into play. I know a few years ago after the London riots, there was discussion of moving to a more type of zero-tolerance type of policing that America currently uses across several forces. But that is not going to work in the UK. As obvious, it's not working in America. We are a pivotal role within the community, and we need to understand we're a social player in the grand scheme of things. We need to be responsible for when things go askew in respect to responses to certain communities. I think the police community, by and large, is not accepting responsibility. We must acknowledge that racism exists in policing just as it exists in other fields.
Well, it exists in policing, but perhaps it should not, or at least institutionally, it should be dealt with. And good training and good leadership could do that, could it not?
Yes, I would tend to agree. A lot of times what we learn when we interact with different communities boils down to a simple fact of misunderstanding. Officers need to be shown through...
Well, hang on, Heather, let me interrupt you. There's not much misunderstanding if I'm stopped in a car in a city in America, and the first thing I'm confronted with a police officer with a gun drawn. That's a little bit different from an English Bobby, our nickname for police, wandering up to you and say, "Can I help you, sir?"
Well, it depends on the reason for the traffic stop. We got to be careful when we generalize police responses to certain crimes. When officers pull over someone on a traffic stop, you typically are not going to have your gun drawn on an individual, and it is going to be a casual conversation. The reason why I stopped you is because you ran the red light. Do you have any justification for doing so? And then hearing what the motorist has to say. a large portion of this is how we interact and how we treat the people we're policing like human beings that are equal.
Let's understand the human side of the police officer too, man or woman, whatever colour or creed. Is it a scary job on the streets of an American city to actually encounter anyone who might be appearing to break the law? Do they fear for their lives on an hourly basis?
Yes. I mean, if you work in a major city in America, I worked with the Atlanta Police Department, which has historically been a violent city with a lot of gun violence. It is terrifying because in the back of your mind, there could be, anyone can have a gun anywhere. Right now, what we're looking at in American preliminary statistics between last year compared to this year, when we're looking at police officer deaths, there's been close to a 75% increase in police officer deaths with the use of firearms. So just from last year, more officers are more likely to be killed, according to statistics of officers' deaths, by a firearm.
Is there one thing you would take from your European experience as an academic now back to your former colleagues in the United States? What would that one recommendation be? We
obviously have a gun issue, and it needs to be addressed. We have a race issue. It needs to be addressed. We have a social issue. America was founded upon the backs of African Americans and also the Native American communities. We need to acknowledge this. This is the elephant in the room that we cannot ignore anymore. There's been several politicians in America who have come forward and said the step forward is to having very frank and honest discussions with one another. So the police community and also the black community, we need to understand the difficulties that each role plays. And this lack of understanding, tragically, is leading to more fear and more death in American policing.
Dr. Heather Panter. Heather Panter, thank you for your time today.
All right, thank you so much, sir.
This is Insight. Coming up, we meet London's first Muslim mayor.